Okay, so this is more of just an opinion piece, not really something that relates to what we've been talking about with the internet and church and thing in place, but it is an interesting relationship that has developed between the church and how the culture of the internet has kind of affected it. So it's something I want to bring up. You'll hear this in pastoral circles all the time that people talk about sermons in light of a TED Talk. And if you're not aware of what TED Talks are, you're leading a bit of a sheltered life, and I would argue, in some regards, a blessed life. They are a series of events that are now publicized. It's actually been going on since I was born in 1984. But what we would know as kind of the modern TED Talk really got its start and its fame outside of the circles that it kind of started in 2009 when it was licensed to have independent TED Talks and publicize these through channels such as YouTube, around the same time that YouTube started doing its stuff online. So this is one of those things where technology and culture line up in a way and give us something that that the church recognizes. And I think that's the appeal of TED Talks, is because what we do is we recognize, hey, this is, a medium to long form auditory address from, a stage to an audience. And what do we have on Sundays? We have medium to long form audio addresses from a pulpit to a congregation. And those words can enter, those are just container words. You could, call a congregation an audience and call an audience a congregation, just depending on the intent of the speaker. So what you'll see is people looking at TED Talks for like tips on how to create these engaging kind of one-off messages or engaging methods of speaking. And I think what we're missing is what happened with TED Talks themselves. The TED Talk is the secular sermon. There's not a whole lot of faith-based, TED Talks out there, or TED Talks that touch on faith-based things, let alone Christian or Orthodox Christian topics or themes, or even from worldviews of those things. They're very progressive, very just like future-minded, and not anti-religious, but definitely non-religious in nature. But that what they've really done is nail this, this medium to long form public address in a format that everyone can kind of get with. And whenever there's a TED Talk event or TEDx event, people understand the liturgy of the movement. They show up, they listen to what's being presented with them, they agree or they disagree, there's discussion afterwards. And oftentimes more discussion than most people give a Sunday sermon. And that's because they've copied what churches have done for, just centuries and decades, and what churches do. We do sermons for this reason. The TED Talk is the secular sermon. And so when you hear this, and you hear a lot of people talk, especially in online spaces, about, this is what TED Talks do, what they're doing is they're ascribing, success, and they're saying this is what the TED Talk is doing successfully and how we need to apply it to Scripture. Well, or apply it to, our practices, to sermons. Well, it's already been done, but in the reverse order. TED Talks took that from the church. There was obviously speeches before, but, what surrounds the TED and TEDx talk culture is the discussions and the collecting of these people for these events, which is just the same thing that churches do when we collect people on the week for a special day, and we have these medium to long form addresses for their benefit and discipleship. The TED Talk is the secular sermon, and it does the same thing. And so what happens when we base our sermons off what TED Talks are doing is we're copying a copy. And what that leads to is a degradation of, the fundamentals, like the first principles of what we're trying to accomplish with a sermon. And so there's countless things we can learn from TED Talks when we're delivering information, when we're doing speeches, when we're doing sermons. But I think understanding the order of them, understanding where this is coming from, that this is nothing new under the sun. This isn't, this brand new thing that is happening just because the internet, gets it into my feed because I like long form content. TED Talks are just the secular sermon.